Hello everybody, I'm Ducky. Today I'm here to show you my breakdown of the cycle and how we can also break it theoretically and also in game as well, because there are a few points of that too. And this is the Zombies storyline, which some radios on Zombies Chronicles have helped to reassure me with, but this idea I've been sticking with all throughout Black Ops 3, and now the Revelations ending kind of definitely confirms that, and I'm going to be showing you a model that I have for that as well. So Revelations is the beginning and also the end, not just the end as we thought. So we follow the plan. Maxis then messes everything up by releasing the Shadow Man. The Shadow Man then allows the Apothicons to invade and corrupt all of the dimensions. Now this is when we see them shooting 115 off into all the different areas. It goes back to Origins, it goes back to Shino Numa, the Call of the Dead site as well. Basically where 935 and all of these dimensions can get their hands on 115, and that's the idea where they can then destroy themselves, allow destruction, and that's what the Apothicons love. They can feed on that. All that we've done to get to this point where 115 is put into the Origins dimension, where we caused the Keepers to send it back there by taking the souls, meeting Maxis, giving him the summoning key. That's what causes the 115 in these dimensions. But there's 115 in there, but we can't do that. It's a confusing idea, but we can't actually give this summoning key to Maxis unless we've done all the things in the past, which is beat the Origins Easter egg, which is how we free Samantha and set this whole thing in motion to be able to start sending the souls up, because we have to listen to Samantha, and there's basically that all happens between Origins after the Little Lost Girl Easter egg and when we see the characters in Black Ops 3, when we first see Richtofen in Shadows of Evil. That's part of him jumping around all the dimensions, shooting himself and collecting the soul from another. All of that cannot happen unless in Origins there are staffs, because the key part, as in the thing that is key in Origins, is secure the keys. That's a Vorkuta step, and that's actually what is required in the Origins Easter egg and what is required to send 115 to Origins in the first place. This whole cycle cannot happen without these staffs being in Origins. Now, how do the staffs get to Origins? That is where the Revelations ending comes in, where it all works out perfectly. We are then sent back to Origins and we have the staffs. Now, what we see in Origins is these staffs in the excavation site. They're put in a tomb, preserved, and then our characters, when we play in Origins, actually go and pick these up, the upgraded staffs, go and pick them up, and that's it. They are the keys that are required. None of this actually happens unless we drink the blood vials and get sent back to Origins with the staff. So then our characters, when they are called upon later, can then pick up these staffs. And this idea of calling is what I'm going to be picking up on in this video. So what we got recently was this timeline released by Treyarch to show the Maxis ending within Black Ops 2 was actually the one considered canon. But in fact, it doesn't show that. That is not true. What we got was an excerpt from the Chronorium. Now, the Chronorium, I believe, is Monty's presentation of the story, his perfect world. Hence, hang on a minute, this all works out perfectly, because he can send us back within a cycle, going back round where we basically destroy the Earth with Maxis, choosing Maxis's ending in Buried, which then calls the Origins dimension, which is basically another cycle, which I will go into a bit later, graphically explained as well. But this is Monty's presentation of the story. After all, it is the Book of the Keepers, the Chronorium is, and they are the people that Monty entrusts to preserve or keep time. So the fourth wall is broken, and it's sort of the presentation to the players, what we play as. There are infinitely many dimensions we see going on. It's just happens to be called. Now, what happens when they are called is we are basically like a program. And this is how I'm thinking about it in terms of a computer program. We do not get to see these. They still exist. They are still in the program, but we are in the main function, and they do not happen unless they are called. So basically we have to do the Maxis ending of Buried in order to call Origins. So we see in-game that Richtofen's ending can also occur. So, of course, it is canon. It's just not Monty's vision of a perfect universe. When we look at the timeline, we see that World at Water Buried is the original timeline because it starts with in the beginning. But we can also see these other dimensions existing in space-time, and it does not happen until something leads to them or we call them. They are like individual functions waiting to be called. They exist in the program still, but they are not called until basically the players call them, or what we do as controlling our characters call them, depending on how you want to look at it in terms of the fourth wall. But either way, they have to be called. So the Origins to Black Ops 3 story is a perfect loop, as I've explained. We basically infect Origins with 115, and then we also send the characters back there with the staffs to then leave them in place in a temple, because the ancients build a temple around these staffs, so that then when we play Origins, we can go and pick up these staffs. In Maxis's Buried ending, Samantha sees that the Earth is going to be destroyed, so she is the one that calls out to Origins. Now that is all what happens in Monty's perfect vision of a timeline. So basically I'm going to bring your attention now to a program called Microsoft PowerPoint, which of course you've heard of, and we can see here that everything links up. We have Origins, which then goes into Black Ops 3, all of the things happening in between where Richthofen goes and jumps around universes, like I've said, and that all leads into, after we've sent the souls, into the Revelations introduction, which then has two things where the Apothicons shoot off the 115 into the dimensions. We see that it goes off into Origins here, but we also see that once we've done the Revelations Easter egg, we get the ending, and the characters are also sent off to Origins. So they're basically two places leading into that. So that's what happens there. But then, of course, we get this all happening again, as I'm just showing here. But in the Revelations intro cutscene, we also send off 115 into the original timeline in the beginning sort of dimension, or timeline as you want to look at it, the story arc, whatever you want to call it. They are sent off into there. Tunguska, Call of the Dead, Shinonuma, all of those places, and basically this all leads up to Buried. The events happen, we blow up the Earth and Moon, we then go into Black Ops 2 and we either choose Richthofen or Maxis. If we choose Maxis, as the Chronorium states, then it all links back into Origins as Samantha calls upon the Origins Primus characters to help her set things right. And this basically setting it right is Monty's influence, or her dad's plan, as he has spoken to Monty, as we see in the Origins ending cutscene. That all puts it in this perfect loop, and Monty is happy. He can quite happily tuck this entire timeline away into a corner of the universe where it doesn't necessarily matter anymore. However, we can choose Richthofen. This is basically going against what Monty wants. Now, one of the reasons that I think this theory has a bit of plausibility behind it is because Richthofen is hated by Monty. Monty doesn't talk to him in the Gorokrovi ending dialogue. He doesn't speak to him when he's addressing the characters in the radios in Zombies Chronicles. For example, in Ascension, he says that Gersh joined you for some time. He's the bald man in the Ascension poster we've worked out, but he doesn't speak about Richthofen. He says Richthofen was off doing something else, so he's speaking to the three other characters and ignoring Rick. But Richthofen has the possibility in Black Ops 2, his influence may be in there to break the cycle, and it's basically to go off into round infinity. This is basically where none of this ever happens. Monty's perfect world, or part of the universe, never occurs. It's just this World at Water Buried timeline continues on forever. It's not a cycle. It just continues going with time. They reach round infinity and beyond. That is basically all that happens.